So guys, what is going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are keeping well. Guys, just give you a bit of an update about the UK. We're in a national lockdown, and it looks like we're going to be in a national lockdown until 31st of March, which is crazy because we've just come out of, a lockdown which probably lasted about 4 or 5 months, last year. And it looks like we're going to be in another lockdown for at least till 31st March, which is 3 months, really. I can't, and when I mean lockdown, I mean schools are closed, and they're saying that they've officially locked down till till the mid of Feb, right? The schools. I think the reason why they've done that is because they don't want schools to be closed till end of March. But I don't think schools will open until after Easter. Personally, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I'm not thing. I'm just going off because a government official did come out and say there's likely that it's going to be shut. Everything's going to be shut till 31st March. And a lockdown is generally when the schools are shut. For me, I think that's a proper lockdown. But in terms of when the schools are open, I don't think that's as much of lockdown because there's so many people still mixing and going to school, which is where I think a lot of this virus has probably been spread. But I don't know. But anyway, let's get on to the main topic. I don't want to talk and depress people about, the situation we're in. Let's talk boxing. Guys, Canelo Alvarez looks set to be facing Billy Joe Saunders in May. Now, it looks like he said he wants 3 or 4 fights this year, which is kind of crazy with a guy like Canelo. But Canelo's so dedicated and loves boxing and loves the sport. It doesn't surprise me. Canelo is a guy that for me is the best fighter in the world. I've had him in the best fighter in the world for a long time. And he looks set to be facing Billy Joe Saunders in May. He's going to fight in February against Avni Yildirim most likely. I think he thinks that's a fight that he's going to win quite comfortably, which he will. And then a fight with Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant he wants this year. Eddie Hearn recently came out and said that he thinks that Canelo will have to move out of his weight class for someone to beat him. Now, Eddie Hearn represents Billy Joe Saunders. I'm pretty sure if Billy Joe Saunders heard that, he probably wouldn't be liking that. But Eddie's not showing much confidence in him. But I do agree. I don't think anyone's going to beat him at 168. I think Canelo will walk through Avni Yildirim. And I think he'll beat Billy Joe Saunders. I think a lot of people overrate Billy's chances against Canelo. Billy Joe Saunders hasn't fought anyone near Canelo Alvarez's quality. And to be honest, there's so many answers. There's so many questions about Billy Joe that's not been answered. And I feel like a fighter can be underrated as a result of that, and he can be overrated. And I feel like a lot of Brits overrate Billy Joe Saunders. This is a guy that struggled against the YouTube undercard fight. And really his best performance came against David Lemieux, who was really limited as a fighter, flat-footed, big puncher, yes, but very, very flat-footed. This is a guy that's more flat-footed than Danny Garcia. He's more flat-footed than who can I think of? This is probably the most flat-footed fighter out there, in Lemieux, and he was stylistically made for, Billy Joe Saunders. But if you look at the other 2 fights that I would say he had in his career that were of any note, were Chris Eubank, who's by no means a world beater at the world level scene. It was a split decision. And he also fought Andy Lee, which was a majority decision. And I felt Andy Lee, especially to the second half of that fight, started to get to Billy Joe. And again, Andy Lee, he had a good career, good fighter, but by no means an elite world champion, But yeah, I think, Billy Joe Saunders' resume is not great. Like I said, he's fought, 2 former world champions? Who's he fought? Yeah, 2 former world champions. That's about it. And even in his last fight against Martin Murray, I wasn't that, I think he did okay, but it wasn't that impressive. And I know a lot of people say, well, Billy Joe Saunders will raise his game. Well, he'll have to raise it a tenfold. A lot of people keep comparing Tyson Fury has to always raises his game. Tyson Fury hasn't fought anybody anywhere near Canelo Alvarez, and even Klitschko, I'm talking prime Klitschko, wasn't as good as Canelo Alvarez, right? So when you say Tyson Fury keeps raising his game, yeah, he does it to the level of his competition in and around his division, right? Billy Joe Saunders is fighting a pound for pound great, in my opinion. I'm talking a guy on the level of like Hagler. Like for me, Canelo, once he finishes his career, will go down like that. He'll go down a great. He's a 4-weight division world champion. He'll go down a great, like a legend, like a legend, you know. No, like I think I think in the super middleweight division right now, I don't think there's a fighter out there that beats him. The only guy that I think he gives him a bit of a problem is David Benavidez. And listen, people may call me a Billy Joe Saunders hater. I can't see him winning against Canelo. I got a lot of respect for Saunders. I think he's a good fighter. He's very skillful. He moves around a lot. But again, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, right? Against that kind of competition, is he going to be able to take the pressure? Is he going to be able to take Canelo's punch power? Is he going to be able to outbox? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things he's not fought at this level. He hasn't fought against a guy that punches harder as Canelo. Yes, even Canelo's a harder puncher than David Lemieux, in my opinion. Not just that, David Lemieux can't land his power punches against a good boxer. Canelo will land his power punches. And he's doesn't just punch hard to the head. He's not a headhunter. He destroys that body. He's probably the best body puncher in the game. Right? This is a very, very difficult fight for Billy Joe Saunders. But I don't think, when people say, you know what really annoys me? When people say that Canelo won't land a glove on Billy Joe Saunders, but yet Martin Murray was able to land several gloves on him. Andy Lee was able to land hands on him. Chris Eubank was able to land hands on him. But yet Canelo, who's a far, far more skilled fighter than any of those guys. None of those fighters come even close to Canelo, by the way, right? And he won't be able to land a glove on Billy Joe Saunders. Come on, stop it. Stop it. You know, have you seen Canelo's resume? Have you seen how thick it is? Have you seen the amount of... Canelo has beaten way more accomplished fighters than Billy Joe Saunders wouldn't be a top 5 win for Canelo. He wouldn't. If you were to look at the accomplished fighters that Canelo has beaten, he's beaten far more accomplished fighters than Billy Joe Saunders. Far more. Like, might not even be in the top 10. That's how thick his resume is. That's how thick. When you look at the guys that Canelo's beat, right, and look at what they've achieved in their careers, right, you could probably name 10 fighters that have achieved more than Billy Joe Saunders on Canelo's resume. His resume is that thick. That thick. You know? So, the experience that he would have gained from that, the experience that he's gained from having all those fights against all those great fighters that he's fought, you know, I just find it baffling that some British fight fans think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to school Canelo and Canelo's not going to be able to land a punch. And listen, it's not a lot. It's probably Billy Joe Saunders' fans. It's not a lot. There's a lot of British fans that think that Canelo will beat him. But I just find it baffling that you get the you know, people on the bandwagon that, you know, Billy Joe Saunders is going to school Canelo and Canelo won't land a punch. That's obviously nonsense talk and casual talk, because Canelo will land a lot of punches on Billy Joe Saunders, right? And if he can't land on the head, he'll go down to the body. He'll slow those legs down, right? And let's be honest, we all know that stylistically, I don't even think it's a good fight for Billy Joe. I'll tell you why, because I don't think Billy Joe can hurt Canelo. I don't think Billy Joe can push him up. If Callum Smith, who's a bigger puncher than Billy Joe Saunders, couldn't keep Canelo off of him. And now, I heard someone say, Ben Davison say, well, size ain't going to beat Canelo. Mayweather, look at him. He's not the size of Canelo. He's smaller than Canelo. Did Mayweather beat Canelo by size? Yes, I agree with Ben Davison saying, but Billy Joe Saunders isn't Mayweather. He's not there's levels between them. There's like 5 or 6 levels between Mayweather and Billy Joe Saunders. You can't compare Mayweather and say, well, Mayweather did that. Well, who else was able to do that then? There's a reason why Mayweather is considered the greatest fighter of all time. To say, well, size can't beat Canelo. Yes, Mayweather's a freak. Mayweather's one of the greatest ever. You can't look at that and say, well, that's what beats him. No, because Mayweather's on another level to anybody in boxing right now. You know, I'm not going to take Billy Joe Saunders and say, well, Billy Joe Saunders is good. He can box. He can move. Yes. But I'm not going to take Mayweather's fight against Canelo. Firstly, the Mayweather fought Canelo, who was very green, wasn't in his prime. Billy Joe Saunders is going to be fighting a way better Canelo, a way stronger Canelo, right? A more intelligent Canelo, right, than Mayweather fought. And Mayweather was, in my opinion, probably one of the greatest ever. For me, he's in the top 5 greatest fighters of all time. And Billy Joe Saunders doesn't have that kind of skill set. He doesn't have that kind of boxing IQ. You know, he's not a top 100 greatest fighter of all time, let alone top 5 or top 10. So I don't think, you know, we can take too much away from that, look too much into that Mayweather-Canelo fight because of what the reasons I just mentioned. Mayweather's Mayweather, you know, and nobody's Mayweather. So I can't look at the you know, that fight and say that's why I think Billy Joe Saunders is going to beat him, because Billy Joe Saunders is going to do what Mayweather did. No, because Billy Joe Saunders isn't Mayweather, you know. Simple as that. So, listen, I like Billy Joe Saunders. He's a good fighter, but I don't see him beating Canelo. I don't. I just think Billy Joe Saunders lacks power. He's not going to be able to keep Canelo off of him. Canelo's going to walk him down, be hitting him with a lot of body shots, breaking him down, and I believe he'll take him out. I think Callum Smith was able to go the distance because he was big and strong and he was durable, was able to take the punishment of Canelo. And even at times in that fight, Callum Smith looked like he was about to go. Billy Joe Saunders, who's not a natural super middleweight, who's not a big, strong guy, who's known for his boxing skills. Again, I think, yes, he's known for his boxing skills. He's slick, but he gets hit. Shifat Asufi, someone pointed out, wobbled Billy Joe Saunders. And Shifat Asufi landed on him. And Billy Joe Saunders that night was sharp. If Shifat Asufi can land on Billy Joe Saunders, right? Guys like that, guys like Andy Lee, Eubank, as I said, were landed. What are the chances Canelo's not going to land? You know, it's nonsense. This is why when people say Canelo won't land a glove on Billy Joe Saunders, I find it funny and I laugh. I laugh. I find it hilarious that people think that. I find it hilarious. I find it stupid that people would say something so absurd like that. Because it just shows what kind of knowledge you have about boxing if you genuinely believe that. If you genuinely believe Billy Joe Saunders ain't going to land a glove on Canelo. I mean, sorry, Canelo ain't going to land a glove on Billy Joe, then I'm sorry. You haven't been watching a lot of boxing. Listen, he may make it competitive for a first couple of rounds, but as soon as Canelo, you know, starts putting up the pressure, because what you got to understand is, if Billy Joe Saunders is doing well in the first couple of rounds, Canelo's going to put up that pressure. In the first round, when Canelo fought Khan, right? Khan boxed really well. He hit Canelo with a lot of shots. He was boxing, made him miss. The next round, Canelo came out with a purpose. He wasn't looking to box Khan then. He came out putting pressure on him. That's what he'll do with Billy. Now, Billy's obviously more durable than Khan at that especially at super middleweight, or you know, and you know, Billy Joe Saunders is a naturally bigger man than Khan, so he'll be able to take Canelo's shots a lot better. However, I don't think Billy Joe Saunders is going to be able to take that pressure from Canelo. I think eventually that pressure is going to tell, and I believe that that pressure will probably tire Billy Joe, and that's what will force the stoppage. I don't see him knocking Billy Joe Saunders out cold. I just think it'll be more fatigue kind of thing where Canelo will tire him. But who knows? Who knows? You know, maybe Billy Joe Saunders puts in a stellar career performance and just beats Canelo. I don't see it, but let's see. Let's see. Anything's possible in boxing. Don't never count anything out. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Canelo looks like he may fight Billy Joe Saunders in May. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think. And guys, remember to please like. Oh yeah, if you haven't joined my boxing group, boxing fans, make sure to join my boxing group. Message me in the link below if you want to join. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.